Penalties for fraud with pensioners will be tightened. Will the new measures help in the fight against crimes against the elderly? In Russia, the punishment for cheating pensioners and fraud against them will be tightened. Crimes against older people will become an aggravating circumstance. A group of deputies plans to submit such a bill to the State Duma in the spring session, the lower house of parliament told Izvestia. Pensioners are the most vulnerable citizens to deception. It is they who are most often taken away from apartments. They are sold unnecessary goods for fabulous money and loans are imposed on them. Easy prey. Crimes against older people, including fraud, will become an aggravating circumstance. The draft law, which involves appropriate amendments to paragraph 3 of Article 63 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation, is planned to be submitted to the State Duma in the spring session. This was reported to Izvestia by one of the developers of the document, Deputy Chairman of the State Duma Commission on Ensuring Housing Rights of Citizens Svetlana Razvrotneva. Recently, cases of crimes against the elderly have become more frequent, especially various frauds, according to the explanatory note to the project. Izvestia has it. In 2021, the share of fraudulent actions against people aged 60 and over turned out to be the largest among other age groups, amounting to 27%, the document notes. A lot of deceived pensioners come to me, whose apartment was taken away from them, forced to take a huge loan for someone's salvation, and so on. Often people fall into the clutches of scammers who pass them to each other. One takes money from him, the other promises to deal with fraudsters for a fee, Svetlana Razvrotneva said. People of the older generation are not very knowledgeable in the current legislation. They do not know how to double-check information, including on the internet, therefore they become easy prey, the parliamentarian explained. I want to protect them. Tougher penalties can make scammers think before cashing in on such people, Svetlana Razvrotneva said. Today, scammers who go to apartments in search of victims among the elderly take advantage of the fact that they are easily deceived, but it is extremely difficult to investigate such crimes, and the punishment is much less than the potential benefit, explained Pavel Sklianchik, an expert of the thematic platform of the ONF Housing and Urban Environment. Playing on the trust of the elderly deserves a place in the list of aggravating criminal circumstances, says Susanna Kirakosyan, associate professor of the Financial University under the Committee of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of the Russian Federation on Entrepreneurship in Housing and Communal Services. Often their credulity and imprudence are exploited by black realtors and dishonest relatives in real estate transactions, she stressed. Fraudsters often impersonate employees of housing and communal services. For example, they pretend to be gas workers or say that a pensioner floods neighbors from below, Pavel Sklianchik noted. Once in the apartment, criminals commit theft or sell unnecessary goods, he explained. For example, it is suggested that replacing the water purification filter will save them from many diseases. A fine will be charged without replacing the electric meter, and there is a chance to save on installing or installing new windows according to an allegedly preferential program, Susanna Kirakosyan said. A set of measures. If the criminals understand that for deceiving the elderly, they will be sentenced, conditionally, twice as much, this will reduce the number of crimes, Pavel Sklianchik is sure. The presence of aggravating circumstances is the basis for assigning a more severe punishment to the guilty, Susanna Kirakosyan said. The qualifying sign adds about 30% to the main term, Pavel Sklianchik added. But a lot depends on law enforcement practice. The court ultimately appoints the punishment under aggravating circumstances, Svetlana Razvrotneva said. According to Lyubov Shebanova, the head of the practice of criminal and administrative law at URL, the tightening of age-based liability will not significantly affect the mechanisms for protecting such persons from criminals. Punishment for a year more or less is of no significant importance for the crooks themselves when choosing victims. Such a difference in sanctions does not work effectively in terms of prevention, the lawyer believes. The fight against fraud in general should be aimed at increasing the degree of protection of property, money, real estate, vehicles, from access by third parties, Lyubov Shebanova believes. And also to increase the orientation of pensioners, their knowledge of the products and service rules they use, she added. It is also necessary to create conditions for the rapid interaction of bank employees, Rosregister, notaries with law enforcement agencies to check questionable transactions, etc. It is necessary to create organizations at territorial social security centers that would provide legal assistance to vulnerable segments of the population and, first of all, pensioners, says Vladimir Sazana, a member of the Moscow Lawyers Union.